Hi, I'm Tom Marino. At Cohn-Resnick, we believe that all citizens need to be informed about the issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support the programming produced by Caucus Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, MagnaCare, Josh S. Weston, TD Bank, New Jersey Natural Gas, proud to support education in our communities, New Jersey manufacturers, and by Fedway Associates.
This is One-on-One.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
People like laughing at others, so I don't mind if the other is me.
See, you go right into the character. That's what it is.
I'm bringing families together a half an hour each week. Man, I'm doing something special.
And so I do feel successful.
We won't talk about that. Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. It's my honor and pleasure to introduce for the first time with us on public broadcasting Dr. Alexander Mirescu, who is Assistant Professor of Political Science at St. Peter's University. How are you doing?
Very well. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
We should tell everyone we're in the fall of 2014, and you are, in fact, training for the New York City Marathon.
On a completely different note, yeah, that's true.
We're not talking about that right now.
Okay.
Can we talk about the fact that St. Peter's, partnering with the United Nations, initiative called Making Cities Resilient, a global campaign, doing what? And is this post-Hurricane Sandy because cities are not as resilient as we thought they were?
Yeah, well, certainly we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of Hurricane Sandy, October 2014. And one of the motivators behind this partnership or this initiative between St. Peter's and the United Nations International Strategy for Disaster Risk Reduction, UNISDR is the name of the agency.
Right.
Really, one of the motivators is a lot of our students were directly affected through their experience of Hurricane Sandy. They knew people who lost houses, and they were coming from communities that had experienced flooding and high wind damage and storm surge. And so we had a body of students who were very receptive to understanding the effects of the storm, and then coupled with the fact that understanding resiliency, disaster mitigation, and preparedness is now really a global issue in development studies. And it's an area that's not just affecting the developing world, it's something that's affecting the developed world. I mean, we are getting hit by stronger and stronger storms, and there is a necessity for our world, which is becoming rapidly more urbanized. The world is living at no other point in time in history as human history lived in cities like today, and so there's a greater concentration economically and in terms of economics and people just being concentrated in cities. So we have to be prepared for these things.
But I'm curious about something.
Sure.
You and your colleagues, from an academic point of view, from a scholarly point of view, your students looking at this, how is this an issue for the rest of us? I mean, is this really an issue for all of us? Because I was looking at this, it said, we need to be better citizens of the world. What does that mean?
Ultimately, it means that when you say the rest of us, well, we all have a stake in good governance.
Even if someone doesn't live in Hoboken, which is a community that was hard hit, you actually have identified Hoboken, and you folks believe that they did a pretty good job at this. You know?
Hoboken is really one of the cutting-edge cities. Under Mayor Dawn Zimmer's leadership over the last few years, she has really highlighted Hoboken as the premier city that is dealing with what we call
What do they do that was so great?
They have engaged in a tremendous amount of urban planning that is multi-purpose, that seeks to, for example, redirect floodwaters into different basins. They have a much improved early warning system. They have essentially introduced
a whole post-Sandy.
Post-Sandy,
got it.
Certainly. Like I said, Sandy is really the motivating moment for a lot of these changes, and it really exposed a lot of weakness and vulnerability. And Dawn Zimmer, as a very savvy public servant, realized not only that were her constituents very negatively affected by this, but there was a necessity to improve on the city's reaction, not only as a preparedness issue, but it's a public service. I mean, electricity, clean water, hospitals, schools, all these things were negatively affected, and they need to be strengthened. Their capacities need to be strengthened.
Going back to the issue of all of us being in this together, sure. Obviously the United Nations is involved. It's a global issue. I was thinking about this from a political science perspective. People who say, wait a minute, we elect public officials. It's their job to take care of this. Mm-hmm. It's not my job to be involved in this. That's a cynical attitude, isn't it?
It is a bit of a, well, we can debate on whether it's cynical or not.
Someone say, fix this. It's not my issue. I elected you. You fix it. Why doesn't that work?
Well, that passes the responsibility on, unfortunately, leaders today are, we would hope that they would be better versed in things like disaster preparedness, but in most cases they're not. And how was that revealed? I can give you really some very qualitative data on that. Last semester, I taught this fantastic course on disaster risk reduction. This was this partnering course we had with UNISDR.
At the United Nations?
No, well, it was paired with training at St. Peter's University, and then I brought my students to the Secretariat, and UNISDR then trained them on mechanisms of disaster risk.
Sure.
What they did then is they went out into the field. They went out to parts of Long Island, the Jersey Shore, other parts of the states of New York and New Jersey, and they directly engaged municipal leaders and asked them, would you like to learn more about disaster risk mechanisms? And if you would, they were advocating for this Making Cities Resilient campaign. It's a global campaign that the UN started a few years ago that seeks to create a community of practice, free information, whereby mayors throughout the world can dialogue and learn about mistakes in the past, what they can do better in the future, lessons learned.
What did they find out?
They found out that there is a very disparate level of understanding.
Break that down, less from an academic point of view, more for the average person to understand. Disparate meaning? Disparate
meaning there are some communities that really understand what it means to engage in preparedness, and there are others that have no clue.
Based on what are the variables that dictated that? Closer to the water?
There are some variables that are geographic variables, that we have these natural vulnerabilities, being closer to, if you're a place on the Jersey Shore, you would imagine that risk and vulnerability are higher, and in fact for hurricanes they are. But would you imagine that, places like Bound Brook or
huge flood problems. Huge flood problems. Not as engaged.
Well, the engagement is increasing, and in fact, we're in Passaic, New Jersey, and one of my students successfully advocated Passaic to sign on to this campaign.
So the student got the leaders of Passaic to be more engaged than they otherwise might have.
Well, it was when we talk about advocacy. Advocacy is really just education in a different form. So my students, who were very well trained, in part in our class, but to really a greater extent by the working with the United Nations, that they were conversant in a set of vocabulary. They knew the mechanisms behind disaster risk, and they were offering free information, almost like as a public service to municipal leaders, and they were like, we need to know this.
Them.
Yeah.
It's fascinating stuff.
It is.
I know we only scratched the surface, but you're doing important work.
Thank you.
You're helping public officials help their constituents, and that is the role of the university, particularly post-Sandy when it has to do with making cities more resilient. Let's make sure you come back down the road and give us an update, okay?
I'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it.
Pleasure was mine.
Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
To see more one-on-one with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, Ph.D. and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Hi, Steve Adubato coming to you from the offices of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in Princeton, New Jersey. We are here with the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Foundation, Dr. Risa Lavizzo-Mourey. Thank you for joining us.
Good to be with you, Steve.
Doctor, the first half of our conversation, we talked about a whole range of things, but in this conversation, I want to talk to you about the fact that you said that there are leaders that we need to lead what has been called this new direction for the Foundation toward a culture of health. Mm-hmm. What do you mean by these leaders? Who are they? Isn't it just physicians? Isn't that enough?
I am a physician, so I can say this. No, it's not enough. We need leaders who understand the full continuum of care and how to bring health to where people live, learn, work, and play. As you know, the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation has been invested for a long time in developing nurses as those kinds of leaders. There's really a dearth of opportunity for all of the capabilities that nurses have. And that's why we invested in an Institute of Medicine report that really charted a course for nurses working across the fields in healthcare, to be sure, but also for developing leadership in governance and boards and the quality of care that we know can be enhanced if you have nurses at a leadership level. So nurses, to be sure, we have a tremendous investment in developing a campaign for advancing the role that nurses will have in healthcare. But it goes beyond that. It goes beyond that.
Go ahead.
So many times, the leaders that will actually improve the health of a community, whether that's a city or a state, are people that don't think of themselves as focusing on health. Earlier I mentioned architects and urban planners, but
in our first interview.
In our first interview, I mentioned that. But think about educators. The best predictor of a person's health is their educational attainment. And so if we can imbue in our educational leaders a sense of what they can do to improve the health of their students and ensure that they actually get higher educational attainment, we will tremendously improve the health of our country. So that's why, for example, the city of Spokane, which a few years ago had a high school graduation rate of 60%, said this is probably the most important health task that we can take on, improving the graduation rates of our students. And so they took it from 60 to 85.
Hold on, I'm sorry for interrupting, Doctor. The graduation rates wind up being a health issue?
We've done a study that showed that if we could get everyone to graduate from high school, the health of our country would increase, and the cost, the amount of money we spend on healthcare services would decrease. So yes, education is a health issue. Just to speak to why we have to have leaders across so many domains and sectors if we're really going to improve the health of the nation.
And that's what the culture, when the foundation, when you and your colleagues at the foundation talk about a culture of health, it's really expanding the definition of health way beyond the way most of us talk about it, think about it, act upon it.
That's right. When I talk about this with people, they say, you know, we've got to create a seismic shift in how we think about health, and it's got to come from the ground up. And that's the part that really resonates with people, it coming from the ground up. Having our leaders be able to recognize how to make health the easy thing to do, not the hard thing to do on a daily basis. And that's going to require a different kind of leader, and a leader who thinks about health as a central value for all Americans.
You know, Doctor, the other part of the health initiative, as someone who was born and raised in the city of Newark, who remembers some supermarkets and some grocery stores in the neighborhood I grew up in.
That aren't there.
Thank you. You know, the foundation's been very committed, and people use the term food desert so easily, but to deal with and live in a community that is a food desert is a totally different story. That has been a high priority for the foundation. In the city of Newark, there's a ShopRite, right? It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's a huge deal. Talk about the relationship between the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, the ShopRite in the city of Newark, and dealing with this issue of a food desert. Put that all together.
First of all, if you don't have access to affordable food in your community, you have a higher probability of being unhealthy, being obese, and spending way more on food than you should. So how do we change that? Well, first of all, you have to understand how to plan for, finance, build, and sustain supermarkets that can provide affordable food in neighborhoods. And the foundation participated in all of that by working with the New Jersey Economic Authority to develop the New Jersey Food Access Initiative that helped plan grocery stores like this, do the analysis that let people understand it could actually make money, create jobs, and create access to affordable food. And then on the back end, to analyze what happens in a community when you have a new grocery store. And what happens, quite frankly, is it becomes an anchor, an economic anchor, but then also you can demonstrate that people do actually eat differently. They eat more fruits and vegetables. The amount of money that they have to spend on getting healthy food goes down, and all of that improves the health of the community.
That's a culture of health.
That's a culture of health.
Part of it, right? Last question I have for you. We've had several conversations, and we're actually meeting today. We're here coming to you from the offices of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation in beautiful Princeton, New Jersey. In a little bit, we're going to be sitting down with the president of the New Jersey Hospital Association, Betsy Ryan, who talked to us a while back when you were starting an initiative with the Hospital Association. I know others were involved as well, employing veterans in helping to enroll people in the Affordable Care Act, the ACA, if you will. Explain to us that initiative, why it's so important, and where it is today, because we started to talk to Betsy, this is a while back, why that initiative, why the foundation involved, and a lot going on there.
One of the things that we found out early on after the Affordable Care Act was enacted was that people didn't understand their benefits. They didn't understand that there would be help, financial help available to them. And we also learned that the best way for many people to learn about that is one-on-one with someone that they trust. You pair that up with the fact that we have millions of veterans who sadly are looking for a way to re-engage in their communities, and this was a match that we could envision. Teaching the veterans the details of how to enroll people, how to find out what their needs were and pair them up with their benefits. That was done very effectively in New Jersey. And as a result, when you look at the uninsurance rate, it has plummeted in New Jersey. We have one of the lowest rates of uninsured in the nation, in part because of the benefits, but also because of that one-on-one engagement that these veterans were able to provide for people who didn't know about the benefits that they had, but once they knew, they were able to get enrolled.
And veterans are employed.
And veterans are employed. It's good for everyone.
Well, Doctor, I want to thank you. You know, I know that we scratched the surface of the work that the foundation is doing, the impact the foundation is having, but we appreciate you taking the time, and on behalf of everyone in the world of public broadcasting, I want to say thank you for everything you've done for us to allow us to help inform those who care and those who don't know they should care about important issues impacting their lives, medical, health-related issues, and as we attempt to all try to build a culture of health. I want to thank you for joining us. Thanks.
Well, Steve, and I want to thank you for making sure that people know in such an important and informed way that you provide. Thank you.
We are coming to you from the offices of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. We'll be right back right after this.
To see more one-on-one with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, Ph.D. and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Back by popular demand. Look at you seeing yourself on camera. Yeah, you look great. Don't worry. Tina Nocera is the author of Parents Ask, Experts Answer, Nurturing Happy, Healthy Children, and the founder of Parental Wisdom. How you doing?
I am doing well. How are you doing?
Okay. Yeah, I just was talking to you before we got on camera about our beautiful 4 children.
Congratulations.
Yes. From going 4 to 22. Nice range, huh?
That's a great range. You're just experiencing the whole gamut, aren't you, Steve?
Yes, and I'm a perfect parent. Did you know that?
You did say that the last time. I reran on tape, yeah. You still are a perfect
I'm the
parent.
worst. No, I'm a struggling parent like most. So we struggle with issues of discipline, bullying, friendship, peer pressure, video game. I added video games, sibling issues, rejection. What are the top issues?
Top issues are the evergreen issues that everybody faces. You know, you have a little baby, you know, and you just think, oh, this is going to be wonderful and everything's marvelous and I'm going to do it better than everybody else. And then the reality sinks in and then you have the same problems as everyone else. So it's the typical things. It's sleeping, it's eating, it's sibling rivalry, all those things. But what we did with the book is...
by the way, book designed for kids, what ages?
Kids ages 2 to 6.
2 to 6?
It's actually, Griffin Press is actually an early childhood education. They came to me and they said, you know what, we really want to help parents. So what could we do? And they knew the parental wisdom patented concept, which is, you know, multiplicity of opinion. Because
no one answer.
No one answer. There is multiple expert answers. So you, Steve, who are the real expert in knowing your children, you get to say, well, that's right. And you have 4 kids, so you might say, I like this answer for child 1, this answer for child 3. So that's what we've done. And it's really encouraging because to do that, you have to be an intentional parent. Because everybody else, I'm going to come to you. Intentional.
Go ahead.
Well, you know, you could say to me, I'm having this problem, what should I do? And I'll give you an answer, but that may not work. As an intentional parent, you have to say, I have to really gather as much as I can, and I'll figure it out.
Give me an example. Give us an example.
Give us an example. Okay, so let's just say sleeping. Now.
Okay, so our daughter's right in the middle for us, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Is it okay that she doesn't sleep and then she can't sleep in her room and sometimes she comes in our bed? Okay or not? Give me the answer.
That's okay.
Come on, give me the answer.
My opinion, you're not getting me there. My opinion is that what's your message? What do you want to do? So you really have to think about your values. And here's a great example. That's actually why I started this whole thing many years ago. I read Ferber's How to Get Your Child to Sleep Through the Night. You know, $15 later, 3 nights sleep. Don't worry about the $15. I can't get the 3 nights sleep back. And I said, I don't agree with this guy at all. And people love him. I didn't, because I thought about it. The intentional part is, I thought about what's my message. My message is, I'm off duty. And I didn't like that. But I also need to sleep. You know, you need to get a good night's sleep. So my own solution was, you can come in the room, get your pillow, get your blanket, and sleep on the floor, because I really need a good night's sleep. So to me, it was I'm there.
Like that.
Yeah.
How about the fact that I kind of like her right there, and she makes me feel better, and it's kind of nice, but then I want her out. That's not fair. Because then I ask my wife, hey, do you mind bringing her back?
Yeah, this isn't a book on husbands. This is a book on parenting, Steve. I can't help you.
It's a book on selfish parenting. I'm sorry. Bullying.
Yeah.
Come on, give me something.
Bullying is a big deal, right? So what do you want your child to do? You want your child to stand up for themselves, but you also want your child to be the good person for the other child being bullied.
Sure.
The last thing you want to hear is you get called into school that it's your child that is the bully. But, you know, if you think about it, you don't want your child, I mean, who are you raising? You want to raise a good person, right, Steve? So you want your child to be the person that says, hey, first of all, not contribute, and then stand up and say, hey, stop it, that's not right. So how do you get them there? You teach them what's right and wrong. You do that in every area of your life.
How about if they're the target?
If they have a target, you tell them to stand up for themselves. Actually, somebody did a great thing. I think it was Bill Cosby years and years ago. You know what I'm talking about? He did this thing. He said, when somebody bullies you, you say, so? And I did that with my own kids. I said, just try that. See,
how about if they're physical with the kid?
If they're physical with the kid, you have to go to an authority immediately and get that taken care of.
You have to go to an authority?
Your child should stop and get where is it? Is it school or is it somewhere?
Not physical back?
That's an opinion, right?
I'm sorry, what neighborhood did you grow up in?
Actually, Brooklyn, worse.
I grew up in Newark, you grew up in Brooklyn. Really? Is that what you heard? Go to an authority?
Well, the problem today is that if something happens,
it's
a zero tolerance.
You're right. So the kid who responds has got a problem.
The kid who hits back is also, so they're both suspended or whatever the school rules are. So what you want to do is do you want your child in that situation anyway?
No. Okay. No, you're right. By the way, I'm plugging this again. Parents ask, experts answer, nurturing happy, healthy children. Let me give you another one. Friendship. I want our kids to have friends and be not so much popular, but have everyone around them and everyone. It doesn't always work out that way. Why?
Because we don't let them play. We interfere. We don't let our children play. Play dates. Seriously? Play dates?
You didn't have them in Brooklyn?
No, I did not have them in Brooklyn. But the thing is, right, so now we're the adults saying, oh, I like that mommy or I like that daddy, and we're going to have the kids play.
We don't, and you're not.
And we don't, and you're not. Play is the, if I could say we should tackle one problem, it would be play. Because they're too involved in video games,
yeah,
technology.
video games problem too, combined with play.
Exactly. So when they go to their friend's house, what are they doing? They're sitting there like
video.
this, right?
So they're not really together.
Exactly.
So they don't know how to talk.
None of them. None of them. Socialization. Would you stand outside a middle school or high school, and they all come out, and they're talking to the person that's right next to them? It's really a problem. But technology is, as a whole, in fact, in this book, it's not only the evergreen content, but it's things like video games and families at dinner. And you go to a restaurant, what do you see?
Messing around.
Exactly. Some restaurants actually do this really great thing. They say, put your phones down, and the first person to pick it up, you pick up the check. I love that.
I love that. We make our kids, I ask our kids, what's the most interesting thing that happened at school today? They're tired of the game, but I force them to play.
Right.
We make them talk.
You just change the questions. Change the questions.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah.
What are you telling me? I'm boring?
I meant for me. I meant for the kids.
How many kids? You have kids?
I have 2 children, and I have grown adult children.
You love what you do.
I love what I do. I love what I do because I'm not judging people. I'm just saying I know it's a really hard job, and let me get other people to help you. Again, that's not me. That's 35 people that contributed to that book. Every question has at least a few answers, and they're thoughtful answers. So sometimes, you know, we focus on the kids, but Dr. Vicki Panchione, who's a wonderful supporter of parental wisdom and is a great contributor to the book, this one mom is saying, oh my gosh, I yell all the time. And she said, Mom, you need a little time to yourself.
A few seconds, go ahead. A few seconds, I'm not yelling, go ahead. I have a few seconds left. Mom, you yell all the time. I have a few seconds left, go ahead.
So you take time for yourself.
That's it. You got to do that. And there's no one answer.
There's no one answer.
Would you come back and talk to us again?
I would love to.
Can I talk to you off camera about my kids?
Yes, of course.
Nocera, I love you.
I love you too. Thank you so much.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, MagnaCare, Josh S. Weston, TD Bank, New Jersey Natural Gas, New Jersey Manufacturers, and by Fedway Associates. Promotional support provided by the Star Ledger, powering NJ.com, and by Commerce Magazine. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
An aneurysm almost took my life.
When I needed a heart transplant, survival rates mattered to me.
An irregular heartbeat could have ended my life.
I came to Robert Wood Johnson, and they repaired it through a hole smaller than a dime.
But thanks to robotic technology at RWJ, I'm still here.
That's why I chose RWJ.
At Robert Wood Johnson, being the best means breakthroughs in cardiovascular care happen every day.
RWJ and Robert Wood Johnson Medical School, the heart of academic medicine.